All right, here he is, the great Doc Coyle from Bad Wolves and God Forbid. Doc, what's going on, man? Good morning, I guess. It's probably, 11 a.m. where you're at?
It is. It is. I don't know how I feel become great. I'm like the pretty okay, the pretty Doc Coyle.
Well, when you think about it, though, I mean, you had some success with God Forbid. Now you've had quite a lot of success with Bad Wolves. I mean, maybe it's not Dave Grohl levels of success, but most people can't even find success with one band, let alone multiple. So in a way, you are
No,
great.
I'm talking about my personal talent. You know what I'm saying? I've just tricked everyone
Oh,
all
I
these
see what you're
years.
saying.
The big ruse.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm looking at your background here. It's way better than a majority of guests on this show, and I'm filming with a camera so it'll look better when it's edited. But my God, when I go to edit these and I pull the footage from Zoom, I'm just like, I can't even believe these guests sit here and watch my screen for however long because it's so fucking horrible. It looks better when I use the footage from the camera. But my God, I got to start connecting to Zoom so I look as good as you do.
Dude, you just got to get this Elgato cam link, and you can put your camera right into your computer, and it'll go right into Zoom. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's what I got to do because, I see this Zoom footage and it's all fucking laggy, and I'm just like, good God, I can't believe people don't hang up on me.
It's all good. Listen, we make do. And we work the program.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot to get to here, so I guess we'll just jump right in. Obviously, Bad Wolves has a tour coming up. I believe it starts this weekend with P.O.D, Norma Jean, and Blind Channel. It runs throughout all of May. And this is the band's second tour with new member AJ Rabolo, although formerly of Issues, and obviously he did the last tour, but I believe this P.O.D tour is his first as a full-fledged official member of Bad Wolves, replacing Max, who was actually an original member of the band, left and then returned for a short while. So I guess first, why did Max end up leaving the band this most recent time?
I think just the touring schedule and kind of, you gotta remember, like with Max, he was always his kind of relationship with the band was always behind the scenes, you know, and even though he was kind of involved on every record, whether it was writing or recording, or things like that, him actually being in the forefront and kind of claiming his spot as like the front and center performer and kind of being the person to connect with fans and all that stuff was a pretty new experience. And he was another band called Once Human, really killer band.
Logan Mayer.
And they had done, yeah, and they had done some touring, but it was like kind of here and there, and like it wasn't like they're like that's not how they were making a living. It was more just something they did here and there. And he's also a really successful guitar tech, and so I think just him doing the Bad Wolves thing as like being front and center and being out there was almost like an experiment for himself to see if it's something he would enjoy and something that he would be comfortable with. And I think ultimately he did it and decided it wasn't really the right lifestyle for him, but I don't think it was, obviously the music, Max has probably more, I'd say not even probably, like more impact on the sound of this band more than I do. He's a real big piece of the DNA of the band, the sound, the tones. But in terms of being kind of the face of the operation and going out there and doing what we do, it's you have to kind of be built for that and want that lifestyle, which can be, it's a lot of work. It's, he probably makes more money as a guitar tech. It's probably a little more consistent and reliable. And when you're out here on the kind of normal band side of things, it's a lot more, it's a lot more kind of entrepreneurial in its positioning, you know what I'm saying? Which is it's riskier. You have to like be you're constantly promoting and you're constantly like, we're doing VIPs, we're going to the radio station. What you have to do content. There's so much other work outside of just, oh, I get to go on stage and rock out, that it looks probably a lot more glamorous from the outside looking in. And then when you get in it, it's like, hey, this is really blue collar, and it's a lot. And so definitely don't begrudge Max at all. It's love Max. He's still, always part of our family. And, that's what we kind of, even like with Chris, our other guitar player, it's like Chris is still really close to us. And it's like we're all just kind of one big family. And it's like kind of whoever's with us this week, that's our boys, and thankfully AJ is rocking with us, and he's so talented and so cool and really elevates, kind of the stature, I think, of what we do.
Well, I guess in a way, though, you could probably Max is probably still in your back pocket, so to speak. So if an issue were to arise, I suppose he could probably just jump in real quick and help out.
Yeah, same thing. Like I said, same thing with Chris. Like, we have their back, they have our back, and it's just a big, it's a Bad Wolves family, and I think it's a beautiful thing, and ultimately, but just about any band I'm in, the friendships are always the most important thing to me, more so than the business, and maintaining that and kind of honoring that and respecting that and just enjoying our time together is like one of the coolest things about being in a band.
Then, as far as AJ joining, Issues just played their farewell shows back in January, I believe. So he was obviously available. But how did him joining the band come about? I'd imagine you or somebody in Bad Wolves had some sort of pre-existing relationship with him.
The only relationship I had with him was I was a fan and I was following him on Instagram
Oh,
because I was a fan, but I didn't actually know him at all. And essentially, uh, Max quit while I was on tour with Ice Nine Kills. And the band, this was like springtime of last year, and the band had a tour they were going to do, but I was out with Ice Nine Kills and Max quit. So we didn't have one guitar player, let alone two, but they decided to carry on with the tour anyway and got Mark Okobu from Veil of Maya to fill in for that tour. Um, but basically, I had a few days at home in between Ice Nine Kills tours, and we're like, we need to figure out this guitar player situation. And so I just kind of went through like my whole actually like went through all my whole Instagram, just people I follow. So I'm like, I probably follow some really sick guitar players. And I made like a little list of potential people, and AJ was at the top of the list because of Bad Wolves has a very particular style that has a lot of kind of modern, genty, seven string like type of rhythmic stuff that not a lot of people, well, I'm sure there's a lot of like younger players, new generation guitar players can do it, but in terms of like, there's that element of the band, and there's this kind of rock element of the band where you really need to have a certain amount of musicality and dynamics to your playing. And so there's not a lot of people that make sense for the position in this band. And he was someone based on his work and issues that I knew he could do a great job. And then it also happened that he happened to live in LA. And then I reached out to him, and he wasn't playing with the band, which was kind of the craziest part about it to me, uh, because of how talented he is and how successful Issues was. Like, you figured, he would already be kind of on to his next thing, but he happened to be available. And we had a meeting, a little dinner meeting, and we got along and just like, all right, let's do this tour. And then unfortunately we were supposed to go out with Asking Alexandria and the Who right away. And
that's
then we
right.
ended up canceling that tour, and that kind of threw a wrench in the works off the jump. But then we got into it on the following tour, and it worked out great, and I mean, he plays a lot of these parts better than I do, because he's such a master at that style. I'm kind of like, I'm like a melodic thrash metal guitar player, from 20 years ago. I had to learn this style, and like it's not that intuitive for me, but for someone like him, it's extremely intuitive. And his fucking hands, he's like, a lot of these great players in that world, the gent world, the Tosin Abasis and Misha Mansour, they're like drummers on guitar. Like, they just have a way of rhythm and the way of playing things that for me are a bit alien, and I have to like decipher it. And for them, it's like it just comes out of them, and it's really great because I hear them in my ears, and I just try and lock in with them, and it's really fun. Like, we just jammed the other day, and it's like we had some new songs, and he's like playing them perfectly, like on day one. You're like, thank God for this guy.
Why did that? What happened with the Asking Alexandria Who tour?
So we lost transportation. and we couldn't so we had two different tour buses go away within like a week of the tour starting, and we couldn't like we currently we're using this thing called a bandwagon, which is like
Yeah.
a kind of like somewhere between a tour bus and like an RV. And they're really great. And even those weren't available. So no tour buses, no bandwagons. And there's a lot of, there was some stuff behind the scenes that led to, I think, a certain amount of disorganization. And I wasn't with the band at the time. I was with Ice Nine Kill. So I was finishing up stuff up. And I was like, we were trying to figure this stuff out, but it was a situation where we didn't really want to put the band in a situation where we couldn't kind of present our best self, and just things just like I said, but not having the proper transportation, we thought would have really hindered our ability to kind of put the band in the best light. And I hate doing that. I've never had a situation where my band has canceled a tour, especially last minute like that. And it sucked. It really sucked. And I felt terrible to all the bands, even to this day, like if I see anyone from Asking Alexandria or The Who or 0936, definitely apologize to them wholeheartedly. To any fans who bought tickets, and anybody, I feel terrible about that because you never want to do that. It's not great, but it does happen. Apparently it does happen.
Well, especially coming out of the pandemic, it wasn't very often that you would hear of bands having to pull out of things because of transportation related issues, and then COVID hit, and
It's actually happened. It's happened a lot. Light the Torch, they were supposed to go out with Guar and they couldn't find a bus and they canceled the tour. There was another bigger, I forget who the band was. It was like a bigger band who actually postponed their entire tour like a month or two because they couldn't find a bus. So
yeah,
it's it's because there was so much touring, there was a shortage of buses basically.
yeah, exactly. So this upcoming tour with P.O.D, I'd figured that the relationships with those guys went way back, but then I was watching another interview with you, and you actually just met everybody from the band recently. Other than I think you have a relationship with their current drummer Alex Lopez, who used to be in Suicide Silence, which I'm sure that goes back to the God Forbid days.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a weird thing with the POD guys because it's it's funny because you're like, we're all fans of music and getting to these bands and POD, right? Like I was 19, 20 years old. These guys were on MTV and in a weird way you have like these like parasocial relationships with artists that you're fans of where you almost feel like you know them even though you don't know them. Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah.
Um, and so it's and then also just being in the circles I'm in and the tours bands we tour with, you'd think we just run into each other at some point, but for some reason it just didn't happen. So it's kind of almost a weird thing, but it very much was like that when we linked up with Marcos and Sonny. It was like you felt like you knew these guys for 20 years, and in a weird way you have, because when you like that in those parasocial relationships where you're watching the music videos and the documentaries and the interviews, you do have a sense of kind of who these people are, and they're so like connective and humble and kind of like wanting to kind of meet on the same level. It was just a really welcoming environment. And obviously we were already excited for the tour, but then it just like, oh, this is gonna be a fun tour. This is gonna be a really fun tour.
Isn't Alex is that the guy from Suicidal Tendencies is married to Tatiana from the singer of Ginger? Is that him?
Well, Suicide Silence,
Oh, that's
but
what I meant.
yes,
Sorry, Suicide Silence. Jesus Christ.
yes, he is married to Tatiana.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how much that band has blown up once they really broke over here in America. I mean, my God, they've just fucking skyrocketed. It's insane. Are you a fan?
Yeah, man. I'm trying to think when I officially discovered them, but I remember getting into them, going back, I don't know, it was like 2017, something like that. And I was I had saw them at the whiskey, out here, and I saw seen them. They did a show for Jose Mangan at Sirius, and so they're drawing, maybe 300 people, 400 people. Now they're doing like 2,000 people. But I saw it, man, because I think they're a really unique band. There's a lot of like kind of they're like a prog metal band, really inventive, and they let the instrumentalists in that band really kind of do their thing, which I think stands out because I think so many bands in that world tend to like veer a little more like, oh, we're gonna do radio songs, we're kind of gonna do something that's a little more broad. And so I think they have a real idiosyncratic sound. And then Tatiana is just like, she's a superstar. Like some people just have it and she's got it. She can like, her scream is incredible, her singing voice is incredible. She looks like a badass. She's got crazy stage moves. Like, you know, when you have like that individual, it kind of greases the wheels. And some people just, there's an old interview with Neil Brennan, who is a comedian who co-founded the Chappelle Show. He's talking about Dave Chappelle back in the day. He's like, he's just he was explaining what charisma is. He goes, people just want to eat his face. Like when you have star power, and you have that magnetic charisma, it's a thing you can't really put your finger on. It's just something that people want a piece of you and they want to be close to you. And if you have it, it's at the heart kind of, I think, of most success stories in the entertainment world.
Well, and really, they're a band that really blew up from YouTube, when they put out the video of the song Pisces, and then every fucking reaction channel out there was reacting to it. And I mean, social media and YouTube, I mean, it really means a lot, holds a ton of weight these days.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something about the contradiction of a really beautiful woman and a brutal extreme vocal. There's something about that's like almost it's never not going to be shocking.
Yeah, it's got that shock factor, exactly. Yeah.
Because it's like the audio doesn't match what your visual. It's like, back in the day, before everyone had like a video set up, you would listen to like a DJ on the radio and you'd hear their voice. They'd have that radio voice, how's it going? This is Tom Johnson, like that real burly radio voice. And in your head, you had an idea what they look like. Then you see a picture, like, who the hell's that? That's not what I was thinking.
Exactly.
You should be looking like Harrison Ford. Who are you? And but I think there's something that is always, there's a ton of super talented female performers that is, that kind of transferred from YouTube to just social media in general, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, of these, incredibly talented female performers who are these beautiful women that, obviously men like to look at anyway. And then they're doing this crazy vocal thing. And it's become like something that's just it kind of scratches a certain itch. And it's and it's, yeah. And when you got it, you got it. And like I said, her vocally, I got to do actually with Alex. It was like Alex and Phil Demmel from Machine Head, and my buddy Ricky plays in Butcher Babies. We played Lamb of God down here with Tatiana and Alex, and dude, she crushes it. It's so sick.
I believe it. Yeah.
She's doing windmills and fucking stalking the stage, and you're like, this woman is a badass. It's like some people just have that vibe, and you're just like, damn. And then the video, like Blabbermouth picked the video up, and then it blew up, and it's like Tatiana and some other people we don't care about. I'm like, yeah, I guess so.
She really is a powerhouse, man. It's crazy. But
absolutely, and by the way, super cool, so nice. Like, she is a rock star because she's that badass, but does not act like a rock star at all. So humble.
No, I've met everybody in that band a number of times, and they're great. And I just saw them last summer opening up for Disturbed and Breaking Benjamin, which at first I'm like, God, that's such a fucking weird thing. But then you go to the show and you're like, it actually, it kind of works. It was a cool lineup for sure.
Just heavy music. I mean, right? Like, it's better when every band is different, I think.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm a fan of more diverse packages. I mean, even you guys and Bush late last year. I mean, to me, that's not something that you would necessarily expect. But I mean, I love Bush. I'm a Bad Wolves fan. I think it'd be a great show. And more importantly, I mean, it was probably turning on a lot of older people, who might not necessarily listen to active rock radio to Bad Wolves.
Yeah, dude, that tour was we didn't really know what to expect. And it was most of the venues were actually these really pristine, beautiful theaters with seating. So you didn't have that kind of benefit of people packed in kind of, getting hyped up. It was a bit more reserved. So you had to like kind of figure out how to work the room and kind of adjust. I think a lot of people that come from our world tend to like judge whether a show is good by like how many mosh pits there are, how many, I, I don't know, some form of like fan interaction or how many people are jumping up and down, and so it was a different type of connection and kind of understanding what was kind of going over. And I think with Bad Wolves we're very fortunate. We have a pretty diverse group of material, so we can kind of adjust the set to whatever. Like, and we haven't really done a really like proper just metal tour where we could just go for it, just do a complete heavy set. But it'd be nice to do that one day.
Would you still do, if you did something like that, would you still play like Zombie and some of the other more radio friendly songs, or would you say fuck all that, we're just going to go balls to the wall?
Who knows? I mean, that's what I'm saying. That would be like the experiment. Like, well,
Yeah.
you just do one tour, you just say, fuck, don't do any radio songs. Just, it's like there's something appealing about that of just going, fuck all that, and just going zigging instead of zagging, or even just the idea of like, we've talked about it recently, of just, should we just drop Zombie for a tour almost just to see like what would like, I don't think it would really be that big of difference. I just think there would definitely be people that maybe after the facts like, oh man, I thought they were gonna play Zombie. But I almost feel like if we're on some big tour, I feel like half the people don't know who the fuck we are until we play Zombie, and they're like, oh, it's the Zombie band. you know
Is it tough being like
and
attached to a song that was that big and where it is almost like, oh yeah, that's the Zombie band? I mean, it's got to be like almost frustrating in a way. Like, on one hand, you're thankful for the success and all the eyes that are brought to the band, but in another way, I would have to imagine it's got to be a little bit like a little bit of a curse, where it's like you feel like you've got to do it, and everything, all roads sort of lead back to Zombie, I guess I would imagine.
well, I mean, you don't have to do it, right? I mean, who knows? Not a gun to your head. It's a choice.
Sure, sure.
It's like, and I think there's different kinds of bands who are more populist, people pleasing type bands, and there's some bands that are artistic in a way where they don't kind of mind sticking their thumb in the eye of the people that consume the band because they feel like it's their role to not only challenge the audience but also like satisfy themselves. So I think for us it's um we've been in a position where we are trying to make the people happy, and we are trying to have, I think, ultimately just have the best show, right? What's going to achieve the best overall outcome for the band? Like, how do we, if we're doing a support tour, if we're doing a headline show, what's going to give people the best experience? And so I think that's kind of in the calculus. And I would have no problem like, hey, let's put it down for a minute. And I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on. Let's see. Yep. All right.
Bless you.
I think it's been lingering for the whole damn episode. Just wait and sneeze. That was that Slipknot song "Wait and Bleed," the Doc Coyle version. Wait and sneeze. All right. See, that's what we don't see. That's what we don't have enough allergy themed metal bands.
That's
Just a
right.
bunch of
We need
nerds
some more.
a lot of nasal sprays, be real big, in Seattle and things like that, while the tech nerds live.
Yeah, we should start one up.
Yeah. But anyway, I listen, I you're totally correct in that it's a gift and a curse. I don't really, I don't have some like animosity towards it. Like, I don't have this thing like, God, I'm sick. Like, I don't really think about it in those terms because I really think like, you know, uh we still get a lot of really great opportunities, and there's still kind of a value for the band in the marketplace. And you look at things like our streaming numbers and things like that that really would not exist without that song. So despite the fact that it can be a hindrance in certain areas, it's probably been a much kind of bigger net benefit than a hindrance, I think.
Well, that really leads me into what I want to talk about next is, probably the thing that I find most remarkable about Bad Wolves is that obviously you had a very public singer change with Tommy Vext, who, love him or hate him, is a very polarizing figure with a very dedicated and loyal fan base, who is obviously a part of the band for the biggest, your biggest radio hits. And then you bring in a guy like DL, who, prior to joining the band was really just known as the guitar player in the Acacia Strain. And here we are now. I guess it's been, about 3 years or so since the split with Tommy. And like you said, the band is still out there getting these good opportunities. You just toured with Bush late last year. The P.O.D. tour, festival's coming up with an appearance at Incarceration this summer, which I guess, quick sidebar, are you have you done Incarceration before, or are you at least familiar with the concept of it?
No, I know what it is, and no, this is our first time playing that, and we also got an offer. We're playing Aftershock, which is the first time. I think both of these we might have booked in 2020, and then the pandemic happened, so we didn't end up getting to perform. But yeah, I know it's like a tattoo slash rock festival, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, any festival like we haven't played, it's a different vibe, a different audience, a different place. I'm just excited, So and going into late last year, we didn't have one festival offer, and I was like, we're shot. Nobody cares. It's over, right? And then all of a sudden they just start rolling in, and it's awesome. I'm excited.
Well, I think the thing with Incarceration that I find so fascinating, because I live here in Ohio, so I've been down there a number of times, but it's the festival grounds are at the Mansfield Reformatory, which is the prison where Shawshank Redemption was filmed. And so, you go in and you do a tour of the prison, and, a lot of the bands are in there doing tours, and it's just, it's a really unique environment. And when you think about it, that with the tattoos and the bands, it really all goes hand in hand for, a pretty, something a little bit different than your, typical DWP festival, given the venue that it's at a prison.
I know that, but that's a little concerning. You know what I'm saying? You're like, first, you start listening to rock and roll. All right. Get down with the devil. Then you get some tattoos.
Yeah, then you end up in prison.
And then you end up in the clink. All right. This is not a good pipeline. All right, brother. All right. We need to change the narrative.
It really is like the life cycle of some fans all in one weekend. But so anyways, but like I was saying, so you have this, highly public and dramatic split. DL joins the band, and, for a majority of bands, really at any level, changing vocalists can also, can almost in a way be a death wish, especially when said band is still developing, which I would consider Bad Wolves to still be growing. You're still, cultivating an audience, all that. So to me, it really is remarkable that the band is still going strong, and not to mention, even less publicly, but when when a key member of a band leaves, a lot of times the band will get dropped from their label, their management drops them, so on and so forth. But not for you guys. I mean, to be fair, 10th Street and Better Noise are obviously tied in together a little bit, so I'm sure that helps your case. But still, it really is remarkable, because there are plenty of bands that are unable to come back from something like that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's I'd be lying if I didn't say it was probably one of the great challenges of my professional life and personal life to many degrees. And I think the jury's still out. Like, we're in the fight. I think many bands, depending on what level you're at, just the act of being in the band is kind of uh kind of a meditation on survival as a business, right? Like, you're trying to kind of control all your inputs and your outputs, and so that you can kind of, it's just so that people can earn a living and pay their bills and organize things so you can stay busy and promote what you're doing. It's a lot. And I think for us, it's like it functions on all these levels, right? I think when it comes to recording music and making albums, that side of it for us has come very comfortably and very easy, and it's a lot of fun, and we're very proud of the records we've made with DL, and we stand by them, and we, in terms of their quality. I think the other elements have been more challenging in terms of the touring side, and kind of getting all that in the way we want it to be. And the promotional side, it's a lot of that has been learning on the job and figuring out how this new version of things, because it's one thing to have a product, it's another thing to sell that product and market that product. And in an environment that is overwhelmingly adversarial, that's been very challenging, and it's something that I don't know if we've totally solved, but I think it's you the playing field, and you go out there and you fucking, you whack, you fight the demons, and then you go back, all right, get some rest and go ahead and do it tomorrow. But for me, it's like this tour we have coming up with P.O.D. It's like, that's fucking really cool. That's awesome. Great lineup. We're going all around the country. And so you focus on that. You focus on what's in front of you. Um, and for me, it's everything is just building. Boom, one brick at a time, right? One brick at a time. And as long as you constantly see an active improvement, and this, the show we're playing today is better than the show we played tomorrow. And this piece of, maybe this music video is a little better than the one we made this day. And that's all it is, just day by day, each challenge, and just, you go in it and you just try and enjoy yourself and embrace the moment, because you're only here today. Tomorrow might never come, if tomorrow never comes, you know what I'm saying? Bad Wolf.
There you go. Shameless plug there. No, but what's that?
That's right.
Well, I think it does help when you go through something like that, which could be detrimental to a band, is when the team stays on the band's side. And I remember maybe 6-7 years ago there was a band, I won't say which, but there was a band that much like Bad Wolves came right out of the gate with some really big radio success early on, and then just a few very short years after the band started to pop, they sort of imploded internally, and essentially the entire team, the management, the agent, the label, everybody basically sided only with the singer on everything, and then left everybody else kind of hanging high and dry. And so, now the band doesn't even exist, and everybody had to go their separate ways and start their own things, which, I mean, you know how that goes when you start all over again. I mean, that, like we said at the beginning, yeah. I mean, very difficult to break multiple bands. So it really did work out. And I think that's, it does show the strength of Bad Wolves as a unit, and not necessarily just, just one guy, you know what I mean?
Well, keep in mind, because of my experience before Bad Wolves, with God forbid that band having, a career for X amount of time, and then hanging it up, I'm literally the entire time I've been in Bad Wolves, I'm always, even before Tommy was out of the band, I was always foreseeing not doing the band or doing something else, that these entities oftentimes have kind of like a shelf life. And it's more the rarity, when you're in Metallica or something, where it's like, oh, we're in the same band for 40 years and we're living high on life. And that, so I've always in the back of my head been very, I don't know if comfortable is the right word, but very like accepting of the idea that I'm doing it now and I'm working as hard as I can to make it work out. But if it doesn't work out, that's okay too. It's like, there's other things to life. There's other projects, there's other bands, there's other opportunities, and, my thing is you just give 100%. That's it. You give 100% to it. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. It's like, and by the way, by it not working out, it just means maybe it's not, there's a lot of bands that are not full-time bands in the way we think, like a band like Periphery. Like they stop touring full-time. They tour when they want to. They do little things here. Like All That Remains, I just had Phil Labonte on the show. It's like All That Remains are doing a tour. They just announced today they're doing this big tour with Megadeth and Mudvayne.
Yeah,
they haven't toured in like 3 or 4 years. But like Phil has other things, and like guys have other things, and they do other stuff. And then when it's time to do All That Remains, they'll do that. But people don't look at a band like that and go, "Oh, they're a failure," or "It didn't work." Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
there are certain bands that like, it's a full-time where they're like, all right, we put the record out here, we tour for a year, then we take 6 months off, and then we start the whole cycle again. And that's the band. And there's different structures and there's ways to kind of have a band and have it exist. And I just think, and this is what I learned from the God forbid experience, is like the best way to approach it is to not be desperate. Is like sometimes like you gotta let the universe come to you. You gotta go, all right, be patient. Don't teach, oh, we have to do this. No, you don't. You're fine. Just chill. Just, make the environment work for your life, and whatever that is and works for your situation, uh, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's about what you're comfortable with. And we're still figuring that out kind of in real time, at the same time being very ambitious and trying to achieve a lot and get really cool tours and trying to break this record and make songs happen. And there's so much stuff that happens behind the scenes, that doesn't always come to fruition, or things that envelop in terms of what people end up finding out about. But it's, there's I've been working pretty much nonstop for this band for like 6 months, trying to make things happen. And just it's a lot of work, but I just feel grateful to have the opportunity.
Well, one other quick thing on Bad Wolves, because I do want to get to a couple other things before we wrap this up. But, how did DL wind up with this gig? Because like we said earlier, obviously he was a guitarist for the Acacia Strain for many years. I think he might have even been a founding member. And then suddenly, he's singing for a band that, while there are certainly some heavy aspects to Bad Wolves, there's also a very prominent commercial side to the band. So when it was announced that he was the new guy replacing Tommy, myself and I'm sure a lot of people were a little bit surprised and maybe even confused at the time at the decision to bring him into the band.
So I go way back with DL. I mean, like 20 years. And when Bad Wolves started taking off, he would like hit me up and just to tell me how much he loved Bad Wolves, and he really loved the band. And he would like send me stuff, and it was like, it was like some original stuff, this band Legend. And he sent me this cover of him doing like a Seven Dust song. I'm like, that's you singing? He's like, yeah. And I was like, holy shit. Like, and so when everything went down, he was kind of in the back of our mind because we already knew like his tone. And to me, when I listened to DL, especially back then, I was like, he almost reminded me of like a more kind of clean Howard Jones. Like that was like kind of his style to me. And about like I'd say within a day or two of us not having a vocalist, he sent us a recording of a Bad Wolf song called Better Off This Way. And it was like, you know, it was damn near close to the original album. Like you were like, damn, this is kind of crazy. Um, so we knew like right away, like at least sonically, uh, if we went with him, it was going to be pretty similar in terms of the quality of what the band, in terms of like, if you think about a band like a brand, right? Like you think about some of these bands like Queensryche, replacing their singer, and where the singer has that tonal quality that is of the brand, what you think of Queensryche. So it makes
Sure.
sense. It's congruent. Or like the guy who replaced Steve Perry in Journey,
Oh,
right? It has
Arnell, yeah.
the quality of like, oh, this still sounds like Journey. And that's something, uh, I think, who knows like what the right way to do that, like, because I think some bands do go the Van Halen route and they go someone completely different, and that's really effective, right? Or William Duvall in Alice in Chains, where it's like, I think he has his own thing, but it still feels like Alice in Chains. There's a tonal quality that feels consistent. And so that's a tough thing when you're trying to figure something out, when you're replacing kind of a signature sound. But we knew DL could bring that to the table, but we still went through like a pretty intensive audition process with a bunch of different people to see what was out there, you know.
Was there anybody else that came close to getting the gig, or when she went through everybody and DL came in, when was he pretty much the obvious choice at the end of the day?
There was, a couple people that were pretty close, but ultimately all of us felt it was the best choice, Um, and yeah, so I mean, because think about that. It's like if you if it's not correct, you that has to be the right decision because it's either going to make or break what you do in the future. But yeah, we were all on board, and DL, man, he's busted his ass, man, and it's not the easiest gig in the world in terms of, I think, a lot of the blowback that you can kind of receive in like online spaces and things like that. But I think he's acquitted himself as well as anyone could have, and he just keeps improving. Like every day, he's getting better at something, and especially the fact that he was never the front man, because there's a difference between like being a singer and being a front man, being a front person, where there's a whole kind of host of responsibilities that come with that in terms of having to represent the band and maybe speak, kind of being a spokesperson and being the face of an operation. It's a lot. It's a heavy toll. So and it's something that he just keeps getting better and better and better at. In the fact again, he was not this is not something he'd been doing previously.
Well, yeah, I was going to say I haven't seen you guys live with him, but just watching some footage on YouTube last night. I think I was watching some of the shows from the Bush tour. It seems like he really has grown into the frontman role. I mean, he definitely he's filled that role very, very well.
Yeah, dude. I mean, dude, he's lost like 50 pounds or something like that.
Oh, no
It's
kidding.
crazy. Like
Wow.
he's like really gotten himself in the shape and you know gotten a regimen, for like because that's the other thing too is like when you're singing in the studio, it's one thing, but when you got to go out there and sing every day and trying to keep your voice in shape and not lose your voice, that's something he's had to figure out and learn. And so, just the more tours we get out there, the more experience gets built. And then also just developing a chemistry between all of us, right? Like there's a vibe and kind of connective tissue to how everyone bounces off each other, from a performance standpoint. And yeah, it's especially and then honestly, like bringing AJ into the band, that I think really helped solidify things as well because we were just we were having a lot of fill-ins and it was a very tenuous position for a while. So to have that just foundation that feels solid has been really helpful to the band. So yeah, this tour is gonna be a lot of fun. Like I just want to get out there. It's like the thing, like we've been like it'll be 4 months basically between the last tour. And it's like it's too long for me, man. I need to be out in the game.
Well, a couple other things I want to get to because I know we are running out of time here, but I want to talk about God Forbid for a moment because over the past couple of years, you guys did a handful of reunion shows. I think maybe even Blue Ridge a couple of years ago, if I recall. You brought in Nick from As I Lay Dying and all of that. And then just yesterday, I was reading an article where you mentioned some unannounced shows later this year, as well as potentially doing some 20th anniversary shows for Gone Forever, and then maybe even some new music that you wanted to start working on at some point when things slow down with Bad Wolves.
Yeah, I've been so wrapped up in kind because I've been just helping out a lot more behind the scenes with Bad Wolves and it's like working on tours and putting, like features together and connecting all the dots with that and organizing, so much of my day is spent on content gathering and filming stuff and playthroughs and interviews like this. And I also have my own show, the X-Man, which I put a lot of work into kind of the first part of this year. And then I have another show I'm doing for notfest.com, this Grammy show. So I've been so busy. I feel like I haven't really been able to carve out the time to like properly write music that I think could possibly work for God Forbid, but I really want to do that. And again, I it's I did an interview like this and then a piece gets picked up and then all of a sudden it becomes like a story.
Sure.
But it's not, but it's not really much of a story. It's just something I've been wanting to do and something, as a band we've talked about like, hey, maybe it'd be cool to write some music, but we're still trying to figure out what the process would be, in terms because guys are all over the country and back in the day we used to have a very organic way of working, which is just to like, guys come with some riffs and we just get in a room and kind of see what happens. But my brother's not in the band anymore, so that element of the creative team isn't there, and kind of figuring out what the new thing would be is something we'd really have to figure out. And I've just been really since last year because I took on that Ice Nine Kills gig, and then that was really big. So it's just like I feel like I've been just going for like almost 2 years. So and it's hard to be creative in that environment. So I really need to like create space to do that, because it's all about the habits and doing it every day. And it's something I've just been. I said I almost feel like I'm a manager or like I'm like a music industry individual more than a musician half the time because I'm always constantly working on all these other. I'm answering emails and I'm doing this and I'm taking conference calls and I'm just like, when do I get to play music?
Well, I know that the first God Forbid record came out in '99 or so, but if I recall, the band was formed in 1996, so really coming close to essentially 30 years of God Forbid. Obviously, we're still a ways out from that, even further from a 30th anniversary of the debut album, but has there been any thought put into the quote unquote long-term future of God Forbid going forward, or is it really more of a let's just see how things go type of situation?
Our methodology has really been to take mainly like one kind of event at a time. And I think with this year, instead of one event, it was just more like, hey, here's what we want to do this year. And it's kind of a handful of events that we're looking at uh near, kind of in the last third of the year in terms of some live performances because it's the 20th anniversary of our Gone Forever album, which is kind of our breakout album. Um, and so we want to do some performances based around that album. And so that's kind of the plans right now. And then like I said, we talked about making music, but we got to figure out, we got to put the time in and actually do it instead of just talk. Sometimes they say there's that thing where like let's say you have a new endeavor or like some project you want to work on that you shouldn't talk about it because you talk about it, you end up getting the attention that you would get from actually doing it and you end up not doing it. So hopefully I didn't just do that to myself. And so, kind of by accident. So I can actually do the actual. But by the way, I have been writing stuff. Like I have like pieces of things. It's just a matter of like developing it and properly recording it and turning ideas into actual songs. So I've a million song ideas. It's just a matter of translating that and bringing it to everyone else and making it into the real thing that's actually good.
Sure. Well, what else do you have going on outside of Bad Wolves as we wrap this up? Obviously, you got the X-Man podcast, which I believe you're almost at 250 episodes or so, which is rather impressive, especially in this day and age where everybody on planet Earth has a podcast, but most of them only hit, not anywhere near that before they fall apart. And then you also, what's the show you do for Knotfest that you brought up?
So it's not officially announced yet, but it's it's a show with my buddy Jordan Olds from 2 Minutes to Late Night, where we're basically discussing the Grammys, the metal Grammys, and we basically talk about every year of the Grammys that have happened where metal has been involved and talk about what was nominated, what won, what we like about that, what we don't like about that, and then we come up with our own little lists about what we personally thought should have been nominated and won. And it's a lot of fun. We have a bunch of episodes banked. I don't know when it's coming out. I would imagine it's coming out soon, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Been working on. It's a weird thing to like be working on something for like months, but isn't out. You're like, yeah, I'm doing this show. They're like, sure you are, Doc. Sure you are. So I've been really wrapped up with that. It's amazing how much of my day is spent talking to this mic, looking at that camera. uh, you know, uh, So yeah, been doing that and really just getting ready for the tour. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's really going on. There's always something. There's always like a list of tasks I am not completing to the time I should be completing, and it's just constantly playing catch up. But trust me, all that is enough
Well, and I guess people
More than
can
enough.
keep tabs on you on your social media, and make sure you check out Bad Wolves on tour with P.O.D. all throughout May. You can get the dates at badwolvesnation.com. Doc, thanks so much for coming on, man. I think we ran over time a little bit, so sorry about that. But thank you for coming on, man. Appreciate it, and hope to see you out on the road.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you. Sometimes these interviews, you got good interviews, you got bad interviews, you have mediocre interviews, and I appreciate you definitely took the time to research and be connected, and I thank you for that, because this is a lot of fun.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. I really do, and hopefully, have you back on, and we can go over everything else that we didn't cover today. So, thanks again, and we'll talk soon, man.
Well, anytime to help out a fellow podcaster. All right, we're in the shit over here.
Exactly. You know what? People don't realize how much work goes into these things, and unless you're fucking Joe Rogan or Mark Maron or something, there's like no money in this. It really is just a labor of love,
Oh, I actually make some money from my podcast.
So do I, but not very much.
I did my tax. I did all right from a podcast, so I can't complain. All right, but you know what? I started my podcast, made a little money, and then didn't make money for like a year and a half, 2 years. So it built. It took time. I put the work in, baby.
Well, and you're part of the X-Man is part of a network, right? Sound Talent.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure helps with facilitate advertisers and all that kind of stuff.
Help a little bit, but I actually generate more advertising on my own, but than they do. But it definitely helps, And the more I like with them, it's all about the kind of how many downloads and clicks you get. So the more shows I do, the busier I am, the better I do from them. But I go a lot of periods, like the last year and a half, I've been touring so much, it's been hard to get episodes out. So it kind of comes and goes.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough podcast minutia.
Hey, well, thanks again, man. I appreciate it. Make sure you check out Bad Wolves on the Road. And Doc, thanks again for coming on, man. Appreciate it. And we'll do this again soon.